don't ever remember him getting in trouble for it. I mean, somebody would come out, and I had no idea that that was really the last time that I would get to do anything with Dad. That's not an experience I've ever had before.
So a little over 2 years now, two and a half. Nolan's dad passed away, and he has agreed to come on and share a little bit about how that all is. We didn't really talk a whole lot about it on here, and I'm trying to do more videos where I sit down and talk with people about experiences they've gone through, other moms, and I want to have my husband on more. We're just so busy that it just seems we can never sync up between taking care of children and whatever. So we are right now in Gatlinburg.
We're in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. It sounds better than to say that we're in Gatlinburg, because I don't really think we're super touristy type people.
No, we're not.
Anyway, we've been enjoying it.
We've been really enjoying.
I thought I'd show something I got. There's a store here called Smoky Mountain Knife Works, and it is supposedly the biggest knife store in the U.S.
Yeah.
Maybe the world, I'm not sure. But anyway, this is they're called a reef knife, but it's spelled exactly the same as your last name. Beautiful knife. And I just couldn't pass it up, so
That's really cool.
I got one.
And Xander, he got a little Swiss knife, right?
Yeah.
And he's been having so much fun. He's just carving and whittling sticks here. So
it's so good to see, because I remember when I got my first pocket knife, I think maybe it was a Swiss knife.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but yeah, that was me. I was out carving things. It was really special. And I just was afraid that in today's era, with all the things that kids can have electronically and so on, and we try to be careful, but you know, he definitely has those kind of toys too. I thought a knife would maybe just be another, not that big of a deal to him, but it is a very big deal to him. He's very happy with it, and
he loves it. Yeah.
It's pretty awesome to see.
For those of you that remember, it's it was in February of 2020, right?
January, actually.
Was it January?
January 31st is when he passed away, of 2021.
2021. And I had done a video of me driving out. Some of you had followed that, and different of you have mentioned that as well. I'd been pretty sick over that time, and flying just made my anxiety go through the roof. But anyway, we haven't really touched on it since. So, and I first thought if you could talk about your dad, like who he was, what he was like.
He was born in 1958, so he was a boomer. Actually was born in Canada, Kitchener-Waterloo. I did what was called farm drainage. They had they put clay tile in the ground to actually drain the water away, which is kind of interesting, because I grew up, we had to irrigate, we had to put water down, but he grew up taking the water away. So
that's true.
He was very much a mechanically minded type of person. Like, he loved trucks, he loved driving, how things worked. I could not get along without Google Maps, and I just have many memories of trips with Dad, and you know, he'd pull the atlas out usually before a trip.
Okay.
But generally he kind of knew where he was going, and we never got like badly lost, you know. He always, well, I guess this was kind of the wrong road, and
you have more of that in you than you realize, probably.
Well, I don't know, I don't really enjoy like being on the wrong road, but you know, for Dad it was just, he kind of liked to drive different routes, and that, and then he loved old trucks. He grew up with Rio trucks, which you don't see them on the road today anymore. They're a extinct company, I guess, but back in the day they made very good trucks, and that's what he would have had, what would have been around the tile yard when he grew up. You know, he would have known all the specs from trucks of different years. And so I have memories of going back, like driving back into old gravel pits and farms and stuff to take pictures of these old trucks that he had remembered were back there from a previous trip, or
and they're often sitting in the weeds.
Yeah.
Like, they were often old dilapidated trucks that needed fixing up or something.
Yeah, and what always amazed me is my dad was very conscientious about, like, I mean, I remember him getting pulled over for driving too fast or whatever, but he was a good driver. But yeah, it would always amaze me, as conscientious as he was about traffic laws, and you know, he honored law enforcement and stuff, but we would kind of look the other way sometimes with going onto people's property to take pictures of some of these old trucks, like, you know, going past these gravel pit gates that would say employees only, and I don't ever remember him getting in trouble for it. I mean, somebody would come out, and Dad usually would, if it was an older gentleman, he would get them interested in their old trucks and kind of make a friend out of it. But it always surprised me because, yeah, he wasn't that type of person that just disregarded rules, you know, but that was something that, you know, he...
And the whole Diamond Rio, like it's almost a legacy he's left behind for the children. Now you all, every time you see one, it's kind of a memory of your dad, and
it is, and
you start picking them out. Like, look, Dad would have liked that one, and
yeah, I felt really proud. A few months ago, I had dropped some scrap steel off at a steel yard close to home there, and I saw just the corner of the back of a cab in a garage, and I said, that has to be a Rio cab, and I went and verified, and it was.
That's really cool. What, a month ago or so, his friend, cousin,
that would be my dad's first cousin.
Back before your dad died, they were working at restoring an old one together with both their finances. It was up in Canada, so there was a big truck show.
One.
Oh, okay.
Dad and Ron owned 3 or 4 of them together.
Okay.
This one was one that they had bought, but it wasn't restored yet at the time Dad passed away.
Okay.
And so Ron made a priority to restore it, and he put my dad's name on the door, his birth and his passing date, because all the other trucks have my grandpa, my dad's dad, and his brothers. Their names are all on truck doors, and now Dad's is too.
Okay, and then you got to go up and drive it in the truck show. They let you drive that one.
Yeah, I got to, drive it to the truck show, and
okay.
That was really special. That's a very neat old truck.
What was the story behind your dad passing away, and how old was he?
The year of 2020, and that was probably awful for everybody in a lot of ways. Dad was diagnosed with lymphoma cancer, and I think his was the non-Hodgkin's, and I'm a little bit, there's aggressive forms and not so aggressive forms. I think his was aggressive, but it was also fairly treatable. I mean, the doctors gave a fairly good prognosis for him as far as, but he did start with chemo treatments. I went out for 2 weeks in October of that year to just help with stuff around the farm, and I am so grateful I did that, because I had no idea that was really the last time that I would get to do anything with Dad. And he was, you know, he didn't have his full strength. He was definitely he was, I think, on his second chemo treatment then, but he took me to the airport when I was ready to leave, and he was hunting up truck parts, and it seemed kind of like his old self, and that I'm just really glad I had those memories of being with Dad, having some good conversations, and yeah, we talked a little bit about who Dad was before, and I don't mean to belittle his life down to he just liked his old trucks and traveling. Dad was a very deeply Christian man, like a lot of
Can you hold that? That's just going to be too loud.
I didn't want, we had talked about how Dad liked his old trucks and traveling and stuff, and that is a small part of who Dad was. I mean, Dad taught us a lot about Christian values and what it means to work hard and to care for people, just a lot of stuff. So I don't mean to think of Dad only in terms of old trucks and stuff like that, because he was much more than all that. But back to where we were before, he was working through chemo, and then Christmas time of 2020 he was diagnosed with COVID, or he came down with COVID. They sent him home, and then he wasn't really making sense. Anyway, they took him in, and his oxygen levels were really low, and that's when he was in the hospital for a few days on oxygen. He was never on a ventilator. He was always on oxygen. Anyway, and that's when he had his birthday, his 63rd birthday in the hospital, and because it was COVID, nobody could be in there with him. He was all by himself, which, yeah, is kind of...
One person, not?
That was at the end.
Oh,
that was when he
really?
Yeah.
I'm forgetting all these details.
Yeah, his first couple of hospital stays, nobody was allowed in.
That was just awful.
So yeah, and then it seemed like he was better, so they let him come home, And that was a few days, and I think he ended up back in there again. We were back in Pennsylvania. I, was trying to keep tabs on what was going on, but it seemed like he was working through it. Mom called and said the doctors called. They said they were kind of running out of options, and they're recommending the family get together. And that hit me pretty hard. I just...
No one was really expecting it.
Well, yeah, I guess I should have been more. It seemed like he was, pulling through or whatever. But so Xander and I ended up flying out on Saturday. My thoughts were at that time that, we would have a couple more weeks with him, and you were really sick then. I thought, well, if I fly out, at that point they were allowing one person per day to be with him. I thought, well, I could be one of those people, have a day with Dad, and then Xander and I would fly home, kind of keep our ears open to what was going on, and then we would all drive out, when it looked like the end was really close. We flew out, got in late Saturday evening, and Sunday morning they called and said he doesn't have much time. Well, Sunday was actually, it was a terrible day, but it was special that everyone, all of the family, other than my brother Jason, who lives in Wisconsin, he wasn't there. All of us were able to talk with Dad, and he had a pretty rough night Saturday night, but Sunday he kind of got rejuvenated. Like it was good to hear conversations, and I don't know, that's not an experience I've ever had before.
Who was it then? Was that you? Because they were still holding to the one person per room thing until right at the end, finally they're like, look, we're just going in. Or
I don't remember who actually said. That might have been me, I'm not sure.
I think maybe it was. They'd allow the whole family in then, or at least they didn't stop you, and the whole family got to be with him.
Yeah, and that was very special.
If there's one thing you could tell your dad, go back and tell your dad that you wish you would have said. Maybe we all have those wish, I guess. Maybe that's not a good question, but if there's any...
it's a good one. I wish I could have thanked him for raising us, and for all of the hard work he put into, teaching us what he did. I'm just aware now as a parent how often you crawl into bed at night and are just drained. You've spent all day, working to pay bills and to be a father and be there and do things, and it's fun, it's rewarding, it's whatever, but it's very hard, and it's very humbling to realize that the generation before you did that for you, and Dad did it very well for us, and I wish I had done better at communicating that to him.
Your family talked some about grief and how it looks different for everybody. How was it for you with grief? How you processed it, maybe in comparison to how you might have imagined how it would be? It's kind of a deep question, but...
It is. I would say for me personally, the initial few days and weeks, you're kind of on autopilot. The reality's there, but it's not a normal yet. And so, it was really hard at first, but a couple weeks later we went home, I got home, and that was really, really hard for those first couple months. Like it really was. And it was really hard for my family too. Like, I think just trying to work through what it meant to me. My oldest brother Vern gets so much credit for the hard work he's put into the home farm there, and that's an ongoing thing now. We're still working through what the future should look like and all those things, but
and there's adoption that was in the process.
They should have been adopted already, but because of COVID it was pushed off. Anyway, they had all the paperwork signed. Well, then when he passed away, Mom had to do a bunch of paperwork as a single parent. For those of you who don't know, I have 2 brothers and a sister that are adopted. That process was still ongoing through all this. It was difficult for everybody, and it's really hard when you're an adult. And I think when you're a child, when you're in that 6 to 12 range or whatever, you understand that someone's gone, and you feel the pain of that. but you're less capable of really controlling your actions and stuff. And so, yeah, it was hard to see all of the work that my biological brother and sisters had to put in at home with, helping them work through all this. And yeah, I guess what grief looks like. Like, grief isn't always crashing for 5 days in your room and then, you come out and you've got it all worked through. Like, for some people it's different. Like, initially maybe it doesn't look like they're really grieving, but they are,
So how has losing a parent affected the way you parent your children? Or has it? And if it has, how has it?
I'm sure somebody that lost a parent when they were under 15 or whatever, like, that's a very different feeling. I mean, I was married and had children of my own when Dad passed away, but I guess I would just say it reinforces how much we're really only given the present. You need to make every moment count as much as you can, and I'm guessing that's not very profound, but it definitely has affected how I think about being a parent, because like they say, you never walk through a graveyard and see a tombstone with people wishing they had spent a few more hours at work, or those aren't the things. They're important, but they're not the things that you think about when you're on your deathbed.
Okay, so you talked a little bit about memories as far as what your dad liked, but do you have any specific memories that you can think of that you have with your dad that you really enjoyed? Or that you'd like to come up or say?
We were not a family that lived in one area. I was born in Alberta, but we moved back to Ontario, Canada shortly after. Then we lived in Ontario, Canada till I started first grade. Then we moved to Oregon. So I have memories of riding on the truck with Dad. He would take us along. That was always special. That and family trips. We took a fair amount of family driving trips. Dad loved to drive, and I have good memories of that. And also realize that when I go on trips now with my kids and they get yelling and stuff in the back, that what my dad had to put up with 4 of us or whatever, 3 of us boys, we'd get a little crazy and we'd get bored, and things that he had to put up with. So Dad wasn't really a hunter, but I do remember he went deer hunting with my oldest brother Vern. When he went out, Dad took us, which was special because I know it wasn't Dad's thing really. And
what are some character traits you admired in your dad?
Somebody that says a message in a quiet way with their life or whatever is very, very powerful. Dad did that, in so many ways. Like, he wasn't out just seeking after, the next great big spiritual rush or whatever.
Right.
More even keel. Dad was very much a count the cost type of person. It's a character trait that I want to emulate, like to just enjoy the small things. Dad loved children, like especially young children, whatever. He was very good with them, and
you very much have that part of your dad too. You love the little children.
Yeah.
That's one thing that drew me to you when we were dating. You probably held a newborn baby better than I did for hours on end. I stayed with his brother and wife when I taught school in his area, and they just had a little baby, and Nolan would come up and just hold her for hours, and I was just so amazed because I wasn't one to just hold babies, and he was so comfortable with it and very attractive. Last of all, do you have any kind of advice for people that have lost a parent and dealing with grief? And
there's a lot of good Christian material out there to read, but I would say that there's probably not a 12-step plan to get through grief. That everybody's story is different. Yeah, you're never going to get through it in the sense that you don't ever feel any pain anymore. I mean, it's always there. Like, Lexi was born after Dad passed away, and it's really hard for me sometimes to realize that she'll have no memories of him. And
she looks a lot like him.
Yeah. And Dad would have loved her, and that's hard. I guess I think your expectation has to be normal's not coming back. I saw a really good shirt here in Gatlinburg. It says normal's not coming back, but Jesus is. And anyway, but yeah, you just have to move on, and you live with the pain, and you realize that sooner or later, we all have to go. And losing a parent who's 80 or 90 when you're 60 or 70 is not easy either. I mean,
Right.
I'm sure there's pain there too. So
That wraps it up unless there's anything else.
nope.
Thanks for sharing.
Buy Rife knives.
We're not sponsored.
You don't have to put the nice part on. I'm just super happy with it.
That's awesome.